What sport do you not really think is a sport? Story 1. Every time I am like, oh, this is not really all that hard. These people are not athletes. I pretty much eat my words. Oh, climbing competition, sure, climbing is hard, but what is competitive about it? Turns out everything that sport is fucking insane, and those people are some of the most in shape badass athletes out there. Disc golf was another one. Those people are so good they have different disc for different shots they have to plan out every throw. And like thread their disc through trees from 400 feet away. They are fucking insane. If people are watching it on TV, it's probably a sport, and people are probably pretty badass at it. There is a cliff diving circuit that is pretty badass too. There are a lot of cool spots and a lot of them are posted on YouTube. Death diving is fun. I have no idea how it works. The score is based on style and originality, maybe? I don't know, but it's fucking wild and fun to watch. Story 2. So this is an interesting question, as it revolves around what people's definition of sport actually is. For me, it's where two or more people are actively competitively engaging in something to win. And so therefore it doesn't necessarily have to be athletic to be a sport. That said, for me, people who actually play Quidditch in real life are a joke. Update. Sport v. circa 1400. To take pleasure, to amuse oneself. From Old French deporter. To divert, amuse, please, play, to seek amusement. Literally, carry away the mind from serious matters, from away, see dis, porter. To carry. From Latin portar, to carry, turns out that etymology seems to be the best sport. Of all rolling on the floor laughing. Story 3. I did a lot of informal trail riding on horses growing up and then decided to take proper lessons this spring, thinking, how hard can it be? I was surprised how much muscle, balance, and coordination it takes to appropriately cue horses beyond the basics, especially when any amount of speed is involved. However, whether it counts as a sport kind of depends on whether you would consider NASCAR or Formula One a sport. It takes technique to drive, but it's also very dependent on the vehicle. Maybe more of a competition. Story 4. It's a combined effort. First of all, it depends what discipline you are talking. I've ridden both English and Western and find English to be more challenging. As for individual events, the point of dressage is to do fancy moves without looking like it takes effort. I've been training for nearly 10 years and I still have a lot to learn. It's extremely challenging but very rewarding. If you are doing a pony ride, no, there is no skill, but riding at a higher level is very difficult. Equestrians train at the gym and with their horses nearly every day. Once you try to do something besides go in a straight line, you soon realize that communicating to an animal with a mind of its own is much more difficult than you thought. Story 5. I used to think that until I decided to try it in high school. Trying to keep up with a rock at full takeout speed is difficult enough without having to sweep as hard and fast as you possibly can, all while on ice. It involves a lot more coordination and physical fitness than many other activities in this thread that people are suggesting as sports. Take a look online at the majority of the top teams in the sport right now, and outside of the odd outlier, most are in pretty decent shape. First couple times doing it, my calves and quads were definitely feeling it the next day from the slide involved when throwing the 44-pound rock down the ice as well. Story 6. As someone who is an equestrian, it most definitely is a sport. I do other sports as well, but dressage is by far the hardest. It doesn't look like anything, and that's the entire point. The people in the Olympics spend decades training and building up muscle in order to sit perfect still and give such subtle clues to their horse that the people watching can hardly see. Although I prefer jumping, dressage is incredibly challenging and is what made me start to become a better rider. Anyone can sit on a horse and yeehaw it. Kicking a horse and flapping your arms around is easy, but you will quickly lose control and cannot do fancy moves. Being able to tell your horse to do things like pirouettes without a non-equestrian noticing is what's hard. The horse is just as much an athlete as well. It's a team sport. Horses aren't just forced to do something they hate. They are bred for generations to get the right background, and if they aren't meant for it, they end up going into a different discipline. Story 7. Chess. When I was a geometry teacher, I used to take my students through an interesting discussion where I listed 20 activities: bowling, baseball, gymnastics, car racing, darts, Call of Duty, chess, etc., and asked them to identify which ones were sports. Then, as I asked students why they felt a particular activity qualifies as a sport, students often found their justification resulted in a contradiction with their other answers. They then were asked to write their own definition of sport that would align with every single one of their opinions. It was very challenging, and some found that they just had to change their opinion. Try writing a definition of sport where archery qualifies but darts does not. Geometry involves careful wording of definitions, postulates, and theorems, and this was an interesting way of introducing them to that idea. My own definition: an activity involving multiple people and requiring physical endurance, hand-eye coordination, speed, and/or strength in which there is a method of determining the winners. Activities that involve endurance or strength are considered athletic sports. Activities that do not require any of the 4 physical skills are considered games. Story 8. I'm about to be downvoted into oblivion, but any sport where the scoring is subjective. If there's judges involved, it's not a sport. I'm not saying it doesn't take a tremendous amount of discipline, coordination, and physicality to compete in figure skating, or synchronized swimming, gymnastics, or skateboarding. It may sound like a contradiction, but I consider people who participate in these activities to be true athletes. But so does ballroom dancing or cheerleading, or a circus trapeze act. The only reason we consider some activities sports and others not is because of their inclusion in the Olympics. If scoring is subjective, then the personal bias of each judge becomes part of the scoring. Or worse, judges have been known to cheat or accept bribes, so how can you truly say who is the best at any sport where subjectivity is involved? Until you develop an AI computerized judge and remove the fallibility of human judges, you can't say it's a sport in the truest sense.